A man named Walter Boyd fed 9 people off a half-acre of ground in eastern Kentucky, and the government wrote him down as poor. He wasn't poor. He was fed. He kept a dozen laying hens scratching under the porch, 2 milk goats tied to a black locust behind the smokehouse, a sow in a litter rooting the corner where nothing else would grow, and a pair of ducks on a spring-fed puddle he dug himself. Every one of them had a job, and none of them carried a feed bill, because Walter Boyd didn't buy what his own ground could give him. That winter, the census taker came through and wrote him down as poor. He wasn't poor. He was fed. Today, most folks with a half-acre of grass to mow couldn't put a week of dinners on their own table if the grocery store closed on a Monday morning. $50 in eggs, $20 in milk, $40 in meat, every week. Gone. But here's the twist, friend. The record now says Walter Boyd's half-acre, that yard the census called poor, fed his family better, cheaper, and safer than the supermarket feeds you today. 7 animals did the work. 7. And somebody spent the last 80 years making sure you never learned which ones. I'm Silas Mercer, 7th generation on this ridge. My people settled Mercer Hollow in the 1790s and never left. Every one of these 7 animals my grandfather Eli kept on our own half-acre through the Depression, fed 8 kids off it, and copied every trick into a leather journal he made me swear I'd pass on. This is me keeping my word. Before we go on, there's something coming for this country, and the news won't say a word about it till it's already on your doorstep. It comes down to one number: 3 days. That's what the stores hold for you. Your grandfather's pantry held a winter, and the difference was never money. It was knowing. 904 pages of that knowing in one book. Water, fire, curing, canning, the plants that heal and the ones that kill. silasmercer.shop. Links below. All right, back to it. Some of what I'm about to count down the industrial farm worked hard to bury. Number 6. The vegetable oil companies made unprofitable the day they put shortening on the shelf, and there's barely 1,000 of them left alive in this country. Number 5. A land-grant university out in Oregon confirmed puts more meat on the table per pound of feed than nearly anything else you can raise. And number 1 isn't an animal at all. It's the thing all 7 of them add up to, and it's the one they hope you never figure out. None of these 7 faded because they quit working. They faded because somebody sells you every week what these animals used to give your grandfather for free. That's not on you. They're good at making you need them. Before we count down, tap subscribe. Not for me, because we're pulling the old half-acre self-reliance back on the ground the feed store would rather you kept mowing. 7 animals, 5 zones on the yard: eggs and meat, protein, dairy, waterfowl, and pollination. And one question underneath all of them. Not what did we lose, but who's getting paid because we forgot, and how do you take it back? Number 7, Zone 1 on the half-acre, eggs and meat, both from the same bird. Eli kept a dozen Dominiques scratching under the porch of the old cabin, black and white birds with the barred feathers folks used to call cuckoo pattern. They worked the yard from sunup, turned every kitchen scrap into an egg, and by the time the leaves fell, the old rooster went in the pot and the young ones took his place. That was the whole system. No bag, no receipt. A United States Department of Agriculture Farmers Bulletin out of 1917 put dual-purpose farm hens at 150 to 175 eggs a year under ordinary homestead care. A 1911 bulletin on a good strain gave 200. Today, retail data has large eggs sitting near $3 a dozen and higher when the news is bad. One heritage hen at 150 eggs is 12 and a half dozen, near $40 a year in eggs you don't buy. 6 hens is a grocery aisle you skip, and when she's done laying, she's dinner. The Dominique was the first American chicken written into the American Poultry Association Standard of Perfection in 1874. She was every barnyard on this side of the country. Then, straight out of the Livestock Conservancy's own record, Dominique numbers declined sharply with the rise of industrial poultry production in the mid-1900s. The Perdues and the Tysons wanted a bird that lived in a wire cage under a light bulb and ate nothing but the bag they sold. Companies with names like Highline and ISA bred you a hen that lays like a machine for 2 years and then quits, and can't feed herself off a yard if you asked her to. A hen that forages was bad for the feed bill. That was the whole reason. The Livestock Conservancy calls the Dominique an excellent forager and a calm, reliable mother. 6 to 10 hens in a 4x8 coop with a fenced run, 10 square foot of yard apiece, 1 bag of layer feed is backup, and the rest is bugs and scraps and grass. 20 weeks to first egg. Predator-proof at night, non-negotiable. 1 flock, 1 coop, eggs on the counter. Never a dozen from the store again. That one they just crowded off the shelf. The next one? The next one they patented the food you used to give it for free. First pattern break, friend. Here's where the half-acre stops being quaint and starts being the reason the feed store keeps a light on. Every animal from here down took a real profit out of somebody's pocket the day your grandfather stopped needing them. That's why you never met them. Number 6, Zone 2 on the yard. Protein. In the shape of a black hog no taller than your knee, the American guinea hog. A small black pig, gentle enough a child could feed her, sharp enough to root the corner of the yard nothing else will grow. Southern homesteads kept them the way you'd keep a garden, in the shady spot behind the smokehouse, eating acorns, kitchen peelings, whey from the milking pail, and the tomato vines when frost took the garden. Fall came, and 1 hog fed a family into spring. A mature guinea sow runs 150 to 200 pounds live. Butchered, honest, and dignified, that's roughly 120 pounds of pork on the hook, plus rendered lard that took the place of every jar of cooking fat in the pantry. Retail data has pork chops around $4 to $5 a pound. 1 hog is close to $500 of meat, and the lard alone kills a $2 can of shortening every couple weeks all year. The Livestock Conservancy says it plain. American guinea hog populations plummeted with the shift from lard to vegetable oils and lean pork. Here's the smoking gun. In 1911, Procter & Gamble put Crisco on the shelf, hydrogenated cottonseed oil, marketed as clean and modern and better than the fat off a hog. 20 years of advertising later, the lard hog was uneconomic. And then Smithfield and Hormel built confinement barns for a lean pink pig that never sees dirt and lives on a formulated ration you can't grow in your yard. 2 industries at once, replacing a hog that fed herself on nothing. The Livestock Conservancy today lists the guinea hog as threatened, under 5,000 alive on the planet, from a bird every southern farm used to keep. 1 or 2 hogs on a rotated corner of the half-acre, strong fencing, shade, water, a wallow to cool off in, kitchen scraps, and pasture. Check your zoning first, honest. And when the day comes, humane practice is not optional. 1 hog, 6 months, a freezer full of meat, and a jar of lard on every shelf. Never a receipt. Number 6 they replaced with a bottle of oil. Number 5 they replaced with a chicken. Number 5, still zone 2, still protein. And this one, your grandmother kept in a hutch behind the garage, and you never knew she did. The American chinchilla rabbit, a big silver gray meat rabbit bred right here in this country in the 1920s. Depression yards had a row of hutches along the fence line, and every rabbit in them ate garden thinnings, dandelion, plantain, and the outer leaves off the cabbage that would have gone in the compost anyway. A trio, one buck, two does, in the space of a garden shed, and a family ate meat every week of the year. One doe, bred honest and not driven hard, gives 40 to 80 pounds of dressed meat in a year. Rabbit at the specialty market runs $8 a pound. 60 pounds of meat is nearly $500 off your grocery bill out of an animal that lived on the trimmings you were throwing out. In 1941, the United States Department of Agriculture was writing bulletins telling every American family to raise backyard rabbits for the war effort. 10 years after the war, they were gone. Straight from the Livestock Conservancy, numbers plummeted with a decline in demand for rabbit pelts and meat after the mid-20th century. What replaced her was industrial chicken, cheap, subsidized, uniform, and shipped nationwide by companies whose whole business model needed you eating something you could not produce yourself. Nobody outlawed the backyard hutch. They just made it look old-fashioned next to a wrapped tray from the freezer aisle. Oregon State Extension in 2013 put it flat. Rabbits are among the most efficient livestock in converting feed to meat on small farms. A trio in 3 hutches with solid resting surfaces, never wire alone, that's a welfare line, hay, pellets, and greens. Kits in 30 days, fryers in 10 weeks. Manure straight to the garden bed, and that manure alone will grow tomatoes that pay you back twice. 3 rabbits, 2 hutches, a year of meat off ground you already own, and the Livestock Conservancy calls her critical, under 500 left. 5 was the smallest animal on the list. 4 is the loudest and the best kept secret in the yard. Second pattern break. If you're keeping count, we've killed the egg bill, the port bill, and the meat bill on a strip of yard smaller than a parking space. And the supermarket has 3 of its 5 aisles doing nothing for you already. Watch what happens when we walk to the pond. Number 4. Zone 4 on the half acre. The pond corner, where Walter Boyd dug a puddle by hand and put waterfowl on it. The khaki Campbell duck, small, muddy brown, quiet, and the hardest working egg layer that ever walked an American yard. She works the wet corner of the property that a chicken won't touch, the puddle, the runoff, the boggy patch nobody else uses. She eats slugs off the garden, the same slugs that ruin your lettuce. And she lays. A khaki Campbell in her prime lays 250 to 300 eggs a year. That's more than any heritage chicken alive. 23 dozen eggs per duck. Duck eggs at a specialty market run $8 to $12 a dozen because the restaurants figured out what the homesteader forgot. Even priced as regular eggs at $3, one duck kills close to $70 a year of grocery. 4 of them, and the egg question is settled for a family. Nobody banned the khaki Campbell. The supermarket chains, the Krogers and Safeways, standardized the American egg on a white shell from a cage chicken because it fits a carton, ships uniform, and prints a barcode clean. Duck eggs don't. So the duck egg vanished from the shelf, and the memory of it went right along. That's not a conspiracy, friend. That's a supply chain doing exactly what a supply chain does. Waterfowl guides at land-grant programs still recommend the Campbell as the highest producing duck a small farm can keep. 4 to 6 ducks. A kiddie pool sunk in the yard, refilled every few days. You do not need a pond the size of a swimming hole. poultry ration plus supervised foraging. Predator-proof night house. That's the one part you don't skip, because a raccoon will end a flock in one night. And the water they leave behind waters the garden bed for you. 6 ducks, 1 puddle, $270 of eggs a year off the corner of the yard the mower couldn't reach anyway. 4 gave you eggs from the wet corner. 3 gives you the whole dairy aisle from the dry one. Number 3, Zone 3, dairy. And this is where the half acre starts paying you real money to own it. The Nubian goat. Long floppy ears, Roman nose, milk sweet and rich enough your grandmother made cheese out of it and never called it fancy. Every Depression-era farmyard that couldn't afford a cow, and most of them couldn't, kept a goat or two tethered in the shade of a big tree, milked twice a day into a bucket by hand. Eli did. A 1924 bulletin called Dairy Goats laid the whole system out for any family that had a corner of yard to spare. One good Nubian doe gives around 200 gallons of milk a year across her lactation. Retail whole milk sits near $4 a gallon. More if you buy the organic label she'd make you laugh at. That's $800 of milk out of one goat, off feed that's mostly hay and browse she takes off the fence line herself. Nobody banned the family goat. What happened was the middle of the 20th century. Refrigerated trucks, supermarket dairy aisles, the rise of processing cooperatives like what became Dairy Farmers of America and Dean Foods. Milk stopped being something you pulled out of an animal in your yard and became something a truck brought in a plastic jug. The family goat and the family cow got called uneconomic on the same day by the same math. Nobody outlawed her. They just stopped talking about her. Langston University in Oklahoma runs a whole goat research program built on this. Goats are efficient converters of forage into milk on small acreages. 2 does, a small shelter, strong fencing, and I mean strong. A goat will walk a fence you thought was solid, hay in winter, browse the rest of the year, and hand milk morning and night. Here's the honest note. I need you to hear this one. A goat ties you down twice a day, no days off, and raw milk is not a joke. The Centers for Disease Control has been plain that unpasteurized milk can carry real illness. Home pasteurize, 161 degrees for 15 seconds. That's the one part you don't skip. And I'll be straight with you. First goat Eli let me milk on my own. I got the pail set wrong, and she kicked the whole morning's work into the straw. He didn't say a word, just handed me the pail back and told me to try again tomorrow. 1 goat, 2 milkings, $800 a year of dairy off your own ground. Never a jug. 3 fed the family from a goat. 2 fed a family from something bigger, and the same industry killed it the same way. Third pattern break. Look at what we've got so far. Eggs, meat, rabbit, duck, milk. 5 whole grocery aisles walked out of. 2 animals left, friend. Number 2 is the one that used to sit in every American backyard and now sits in almost none. And number 1 is the thing that ties every single one of them together. Number 2. Still Zone 3, but bigger. The family cow. And there's a reason your great-grandfather had one and you've never touched one. The Jersey. A small tan cow, gentle as a dog when she's handled right, and the richest milk in a bucket of any breed on this continent. Every Depression-era homestead that could carve out a corner for her had one. She stood in the shade of the walnut tree, chewed her cud, and twice a day she gave a family more milk than they could drink, more cream than they could churn, more butter than the pantry could hold. What she didn't feed the family, she fed the pigs. A modest Jersey, not a show cow, just a solid family animal, gives around 500 gallons of milk in a year on good management. That's $2,000 of milk at retail, plus cream, plus butter, plus whey the hogs turn into more pork. One cow, tied to one shady corner, was a small business your grandfather ran without ever calling it one. After the Second World War, milk got centralized. The government's own reports on dairy structure tell you the story. The number of dairy farms in this country collapsed from millions to a few tens of thousands inside 2 generations. Processing cooperatives, refrigerated distribution, the supermarket jug. The family cow got zoned out, priced out, and quietly forgotten. Not banned, just made to feel embarrassing. That's the whole trick. University of Missouri Extension still publishes a family milk cow guide because folks are quietly coming back to her. Now I'll tell you the honest thing. On a strict half acre, a full cow is tight. You'll buy hay. You will not fully pasture her. Check your local zoning before you buy a heifer. That's the honesty. If a full cow is too much, this is where the goat at number 3 earns her spot instead. But if you've got the room and the will, one Jersey replaces the entire dairy aisle for a household of 6. Twice a day milking, sanitation not negotiable, pasteurize if you're not sure. And that raw milk caveat holds here too. Safety first, always. One cow, $2,000 a year of dairy. Off ground, the neighbor just mows. So that's the 6 animals: chicken, hog, rabbit, duck, goat, cow. 6 paychecks the grocery store isn't cashing off you anymore. But you've been watching the map. You saw a 7th zone. Zone 5. Pollination. And number 1 is not what you think it is. Number 1 is not an animal. Number 1 is the honeybee, and everything the honeybee stands for on this half acre. Zone 5 in the corner. 2 hives on cinder blocks in the sun. And the reason she's number 1 is not the honey, though she gives you 40 pounds of it a year. And honey at the store is $7 a jar. The reason she's number 1 is that she pollinates every fruit tree, every squash vine, every bean row, every cucumber, every apple in the yard those other 6 animals depend on for feed. The hen forages what the bee pollinates. The hog roots the windfalls the bee made possible. The goat browses the clover the bee lives in. Number 1 isn't a 7th animal. Number 1 is the animal that makes the other 6 work. Walter Boyd died in 1961 on the same half acre. The county buried him poor. But his grandchildren remember jars of honey in the pantry, milk on the table, and a smokehouse that never went empty a single winter of the Depression. The census had it wrong. Every honest record has it right. That was never a homestead, friend. That was a closed loop. 7 animals feeding each other, feeding a family, owing no store. Nobody made money the day Walter Boyd fed his own. That's the real reason you never heard his name. Well, you've heard it now. Let me be honest with you before we wrap. I'm not selling you fear. I'm not telling you the grid's coming down and you better run. That's a different channel and a different lane. Some of what I told you, your county zoning will look at sideways. Check your rules. And every animal here needs real care, not a fantasy. But hear me. Don't try to build the whole half acre this spring. Pick one. Just one. Set 3 Dominique pullets in the corner of the yard this April, and don't buy a dozen eggs the rest of the year. or start a trio of rabbits in a hutch by the fence, or put 2 hives in the sun and let the bees do the rest of the work for you while you learn. I ran 3 hens off my kitchen scraps and yard bugs 1 whole year the way Eli kept his. Not 1 dozen eggs from a store, 12 months straight. Cost me the fencing and a bag of feed for winter. That's it. That's the whole trick. Tell me down below, did your grandparents keep any of these 7? What animal did your people raise that nobody in your family raises anymore? The one that gets the most comments is the one I build next. You buy your eggs at the store. So does most of the country. It was never your fault they made you need them. But now you know how your great-grandfather didn't. Don't let that die with you. Next time on the ridge, the one plant your great-grandmother put in every corner of the yard that fed the whole flock, sweetened the milk, and cost her nothing but the seed she saved from last year. And the year the seed companies made sure it left the rack for good. If you're new here, this is what we do. We pull the old self-reliance back 1 animal, 1 crop, 1 skill at a time. Tap subscribe. There's a lot of ridge to walk yet. Eli wrote in that leather journal a line I've never forgotten. Wasn't fancy, just true. Keep the old ways. They kept